Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now, And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear. That's Miro.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Humans of Speedway, part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. I'm Ian Brannan, and in this episode I'm in conversation with someone who has one of the most famous surnames in World Speedway. Paco Castagna, the son of Armando Castagna, has now forged his own career in the sport. He's had spells in the UK with Sheffield, Ipswich and Birmingham, which is the team he's going to be riding for in 2021. But growing up around Speedway and Speedway tracks and major tournaments has certainly given him a great education in the sport, and he counts some of the sport's household names as personal family friends. Being around those kind of names has certainly given him an insight into what's required to be the very best in World Speedway. Paco is a two-time Italian champion. He's got appearances for his country in the Speedway World Cup under his belt, and he's looking to add more silverware to that trophy cabinet over the next 10 or 15 years or so. And he joins us right now on Humans of Speedway. My great pleasure to welcome Paco Castagna.
Thanks a lot, mate, and nice to be on, and looking forward for a nice chat, mate. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, my first question to I think pretty much everybody I've spoken to is, how did you find your way into Speedway? But for you, I think that's kind of an obvious one, more than most.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, exactly right. You know, it's been very easy, kind of easy path. No, I'm joking. It was just because of family, of course. You know, being the son of Armando, and he's been a great rider during the 80s and 90s, and yeah, I grew up with it, and since I was born, I was in the middle of the speedy bikes more than any other bikes, and I was going around the tracks, and just was a young kid. Even riding the bicycle, I was just doing an oval track and just trying to skid the bicycle. So it's always been in my blood since day one, and I'm very glad it did.
And so from trying to get your push bike to slide, were you on a speedway bike from an early age too?
To be honest, comparing to the other speedway riders around Scandinavia and Poland and all that, I started very, very, very late. Because of course they have the 80cc and smaller bikes. They do World Championship meetings and all kind of stuff. While my first meeting was at 16, I think, 15 probably. So yeah, I started late.
That is very late, because I mean, by that point, many have been riding grass tracks since they were maybe 6 or 7, or motocross or whatever. So considering your family links, that's probably quite surprising.
Yeah, but mainly it was because obviously in Italy the speedway movement is a lot smaller than other countries, and even back then we didn't have too many tracks, and the policy of the Italian Federation is that you cannot ride a speedway bike obviously until you are, I'm just thinking, I think it's like 14, so you need to be 14 to ride a speedway bike. But of course we couldn't get back then like an 80cc or a smaller bike. There was no other riders where I could get meetings in. While you go to Sweden, like most of kids have the Peewee or the 80cc, they are riding. So I was pretty much not the only kid doing speedy back then, but there weren't too many.
And tell us about the Italian speedway scene, because your dad was probably one of the first, I suppose, of well, certainly the most successful Italian rider. But what's the Italian speedway scene like? Because we don't see many Italian riders in our country, in Great Britain.
Yeah, mainly it's because, back in the 80s and late 80s and start of 90s, the movement was very big and there were many riders. In Europe, we were considered one of the best countries, as far as individual riders, because we had many tracks. But then the end of the 90s, they start closing because of noise, because of houses being built around the track, and then obviously the people in the houses complaining about the noise and the dust and all that kind of stuff. And many tracks, closed. And, when I was starting out in 2010, I'm just thinking we had probably 3.5 tracks. So we had 3 tracks plus another small one, which was only considered like a practice track. So comparing 15 years earlier where they had like 15, 20. So you can well imagine,
That's a big difference in the amount of tracks available from that time that you talk about, isn't it? From 15 or 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, that's because of the noise and all the environment problems, all the money that needs to go on the track. And, back then it was very easy to maintain a track, while now you have to have all these, with all the new rules and everything, it takes a lot of money and effort. And again, back then was easier. So it's very simple, when you have many tracks, you have many riders that attract many kids that want to try the sport. And, kids grow up racing speedway, and that's where you get the riders. Now we are in a situation where we have Terence Arno, which is working, their back off every year, getting the track better and the stadium better, and it's a mega stadium, to be honest. Now we have Lonigo, which we hope is gonna open again this year after a couple of years of shutting down because of problems with the council. And then we have another track which is just a practice track, and that's it really. That's why the movement is very slow and you don't see many Italian riders. So even for me, to grow up and go to the World Championship meetings, even back then when I was a kid, racing against riders doing 3-4 times the meetings I was doing, because I was doing like 10 meetings a year. You can imagine it's a lot harder for me to grow up as a rider comparing to other nations, let's say.
And growing up as the son of Italy's most successful speedway rider, it's no surprise that you grew up around the sport, you grew up around well-known riders who have influenced you as a youngster, no doubt. And you mentioned that it was quite late before you actually took speedway up yourself. What was the path that led to that? Because you clearly had many options in your life. You could have done many things, I'm sure. But what was the decision to follow in your dad's footsteps? Was he hopeful that you would become a speedway rider?
Well, no, he never really pushed me into it. He never ever pushed me into it. And my mom either. And it was just my own decision. They always told me that whatever I was gonna do, they were supporting me. But I needed to put 100% effort in. And it was my own decision when I was racing already since a couple of years in my high school, and I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit school to become a professional speedway rider, but my mom said that if I didn't finish school, she would have cut my bikes in halves. So I finished high school, of course.
That sounds like a good move.
So I had to, and once you jump on the big boy's bike and you start skidding it, that's when you fell in love with it, and that's when I decided that I was gonna try to make a living out of it.
And it's going pretty well, you have to say. 2-time Italian champion, and that's just the start. We've talked about Italy's speedway scene not being what it was, not many tracks, not a big league or anything like that. So in order to really progress in speedway, you need to head overseas. And, you've came to Sheffield first in the UK. What are your memories of first leaving home and heading to foreign shores?
Yeah, you are probably right. I can't remember if it was the end of 2014 or 15, to be honest.
Yeah, it's around then,
No, it was the end of 2015. I went to Sheffield. I signed for them. I felt very ready, and then I went there, had a big crash, and started being scared of the track. And I just did. I can't remember if I did 6 or 7 meetings for them. It was the end of the season, and I thought I did good, but back then, looking back, I did, let's say, okay. They didn't call me back for the next year. I was struggling, but I signed with Ipswich for 2016, and I went there, and it was tough. It was tough, It's very hard when you move out of your own environment and safe environment to move to somewhere else where you don't know what. Not what to expect, but you don't know what you go against to, and that's when you grow as a person, because all the difficulties in life, that's when you face them when you're alone around the world or around, an unsafe environment. And I'm not saying that where I was living was unsafe. It's just you're out of your house without your family, on your own as a kid. Well, not as a kid, but as a young man, let's say. And I was living with this family, fantastic family, and I love them, from really the bottom of my heart. And but going from living in a house with my family, I was living in a caravan with let's say my older brother. I call him older brother Gavin. It was a complete change, and I was facing, difficulties and living outside. Again, safe environment, and it taught me a lot, because also the track was very difficult at Ipswich. It was something I've never ever seen in my life, and I was struggling big time. And when confidence go down, it's very hard. But on the other side, I did a couple of meetings where I did good, and the confidence was going back up. But of course, the team wasn't winning, and Chris Lewis had to make some changes to make the fans happy. And they dropped me again with half of the team, and they just did it their own way, and I just went home, got injured, broke my ankle pretty bad, and won the Italian Championship the year after, and the year after again as well, and back we are, at Birmingham this year after 2019 with what I reckon was a good season. I grown a lot, and let's see what 2021 brings.
You mentioned the tracks there a couple of times. That's probably the thing about British speedway racing, is that the tracks are probably quite different to what else is found around Europe. And you mentioned there with Sheffield that you were scared of the track. Was that because it was so fast? Was that because of the crash that resulted, or what was scaring you about it?
No, it's not. It's not that it's fast. We around Europe in the tracks where we race are also faster than Sheffield. Sheffield, we can consider Sheffield one of the fastest, if not the fastest, track in England. But if you go to places around Europe where tracks are bigger, like Terenzano, I come from racing a lot in Terenzano, which now is just modified and a bit wider, but. It's most of riders don't like Terenzano, but because it back then until last year they had long straights and very tight corners. He was going in 120 kilometers per hour, locking the bike, and that's quick. And so I wasn't afraid of speed or anything like that. But when I went there, I did a second half, first time out, and I had a big crash where I hurt myself quite a fair bit. And I it kind of pushed me back a little bit. I did a couple of meetings there where I did okay, and but everything was just new, and I wasn't just getting my confidence back as quick as it should. There was a lot of things behind the scenes, and I guess it just didn't work, and I'm happy, how it kind of teach me a lot in Sheffield as well as Ipswich. But as you said, tracks, that's the difference in England, because you learn to adapt to very difficult circumstances in England. Tracks are completely different from anywhere else, and I'm not saying it in a good way, if it makes sense.
I think everybody knows that not every track in Britain is super smooth and lovely to ride, shall we say?
I can count them in less than a hand. Let's say like this. So, but on the other side, you learn how to adapt, and what I say about England is just more survival mode when you are in certain tracks. While if you go to Poland, Sweden, Denmark, or around Europe, you find much nicer tracks where you learn how to go quick. But you go to some World Championship meetings, European Championship meetings, where things don't go the good way, and you need to adapt to bad circumstances. And England teach you that. And I think it's a good start for young riders to go there and learn. And that's why I went there. Of course, the level in England is not the same as Poland or any other leagues, but it's a good first step forward for a rider's career, I feel. Obviously, it's not good to stand still in Premier League forever. You need to make steps forward. I finally did one full season in England with Birmingham, where I showed a lot of improvement. So obviously this year it's more kind of a pushing forward and trying to jump into the top league.
I think the thing with British tracks, I suppose, if you're looking at being a Grand Prix rider or something like that, racing on some of the tracks in Great Britain probably helps you when you come to the likes of Cardiff or those temporary tracks, the smaller ones, would you say? Because they're similar sort of shape,
Yes.
quite a few of them.
Yeah, you are right. The temporary tracks sometimes improved during the years. Obviously now they are completely different and much better. But I study a lot of the sport, and you look back then in the start of the 2000s, 2000 until 2010, let's say, even Cardiff was a complete disaster. So for a rider racing in England, he would be much more prepared for that kind of tracks. Instead, like, if you look like one example that makes me think, are the Poles, like Golob, he was always struggling on a rough, small track, even though he raced in England 1 year. While riders like, Crampy back then was racing in England most years, he wasn't having too many problems. Like, so that's the reason, England teaches you that. But I do believe that once you go forward in the sport, and that's because I've seen it in recent riders in the GPs, the likes of Lindgren, Vasulik, and them guys. You need to move to the bigger tracks to keep the flow going. Like you see, I feel that Lindgren, since he stopped racing in England, he completely changed his riding style, and he's a lot smoother and less locking up, if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now I said a little secret, but it doesn't matter. But that's also because you're racing week in and week out in big tracks, and not in a kind of a not survival mode anymore because you're a pro, but locking up the bike and doing all that. I feel that also one thing that changed a lot are the bikes, which require a lot of smooth riding, where you cannot make mistakes, because you make one small mistake and you find losing 30 meters easy. While up to 10 years ago, even with the normal offsets or the normal engines, you can tell by the way the riders were riding back then. You could make a couple of mistakes and still be in your position. While now you can see, even the last couple of years, you cannot make any mistakes. Plus the bikes are so volatile and difficult to handle that you need to be on your game 100%. And to do that, you need to, be quick and to be quick, you need to ride the big tracks and ride them smooth. Of course, you can do it also on the small tracks because, that's how you win races. But obviously, it's a lot easier to do it on a bigger track than a smaller track. You would never, you would do it more times in a big track like Poland instead of doing it at Edinburgh in England, isn't it?
You're such a student of Speedway too, and clearly coming from a successful Speedway family as you do, you've grown up around success and winning things, and you've got your eye clearly on the world scene. Two-time Italian champion already. Is the Grand Prix series still firmly in your sights and something that you'd love to be a part of one day? Well,
that's the aim, of course. I've still got a long way in front of me, and that is going to require a lot of hard work and effort. But I'm not shying away from it, because all the work that has been put behind the scenes during the last couple of years is starting to prove and give some results back. And so I'm keeping the confidence high, and I know that it's a lot. It's about not giving up and just keep plugging away. So the idea is just to do small step forward every meeting, and go from England, from the Premier League, the Championship, jump into the Premiership, and then from there try to go to maybe Sweden and Poland, and then keep plugging away. And Italy hasn't got too many riders on that kind of side where I can jump into the World Championship qualifying rounds and the European Championship qualifying rounds pretty easily, if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But again, once during the last years, I've always kind of struggled in them meetings, and it's always been hard. But I know what's in front of me, and I know, it took a lot of bad situations and bad meetings to teach me. And now I know what's in front of me, and I'm working very hard, mainly mentally than physically. But to go to them meetings and prove myself that the work I'm doing is the right one.
Paco Castagna on Humans of Speedway. More from Paco to come, including designing his dream meeting. Stay there. Back in 30 seconds. You're listening to Humans of Speedway, part of the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first dedicated sports podcast network. And there's loads of great podcasts for you to check out. It's ever growing. Loads of different football ones for different clubs and for different sports as well, including snooker, even wrestling covered. So check it out, sport-social.co.uk, to find your next favourite podcast. After, of course, you finish with this one. In conversation in this episode with two-time Italian champion Paco Castagna, who's heading back to Great Britain for this coming season. He's going to be riding with the Birmingham Brummies. Looking back at last season, not the greatest for Speedway, really. A fairly difficult season. How was it for you?
Well, last year I was pretty busy because I had a schedule of 50 meetings, about 50 meetings. But I just ended up doing, I think, 9 or 10 meetings with the lockdown and all that. I was very lucky to do them meetings, but obviously, again, many riders going to Poland and racing there and doing a lot of meetings, while, some others didn't. But I'm looking forward to this year. I'm looking forward being pretty busy. I've got as you said, Birmingham, which is going to be pretty hectic, and Denmark as well, which they are gonna race on Wednesdays, but I'm pretty sure we are gonna work it out in somehow. It's a very tough league in Denmark, because I signed in the Super League, which is the top league. It's like going to the Premiership, and they have all the top Danes there and some Poles as well, and all the good riders go there to race because the tracks are good as well, so the competition is very high. But I go there again. I was very happy to sign the contract with Brost. They seemed very good people, so I just want to go there and give it a go, and just push forward in the sport and push into my way, into my path forward.
And last year, when COVID hit, you live and currently are speaking to us from an area in northern Italy, the sort of area that we saw on the news here that was particularly hard hit by COVID. And everybody's been hard hit by COVID now, but you had it first and very severely around those areas that we saw in our news reports. What was it like a year ago around where you are in northern Italy?
Yeah, it was very hard, because back then when it happened, nobody knew anything about, once it hit England, many other countries already had it, and the news was already out, so you was kind of you kind of knew what was going to happen, or not what was going to happen, but what was happening. While once we got hit, we were one of the first, and we didn't know what to do. Once we got into lockdown exactly a year and a week ago, because it was around my birthday. We were just completely unprepared, let's say. We didn't know what to do, same as anybody else in the world. And it was tough because last year I worked extremely hard for the season. I was fully fit. I felt ready, and my equipment was perfect, and I just got to March where we went into lockdown. But obviously back then, they said, it's going to only be a month. We are going to be all right. So I kept training for all of March and start of April. And then we went on and on. We're going to start next month. We're going to start next month. We're going to start next month. And I got until April where I just exploded because I couldn't, it was end of April where I just said, okay, we are not going to do anything. So I kind of let the rope go a little bit, if it makes sense. And and then I found myself into May where I just didn't go on the track. And then we started off in July. So it was already a couple of other months after. And then we did the Italian Championship. But, you don't go into them meetings with a lot of motivation and not a lot of track time. And it was pretty hard. Luckily I was luckily, it was my own. It was good because I went to Slovenia to do the Slovenian Championship last year. It was a one-off meeting and I won that one. So I cannot consider myself Slovenian champion because it was the first Slovenia rider to win it. But I won the meeting, so let's say that. I am the Slovenian champion. So it's like, I know that something similar happened in England as well, but we are not going to touch it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Oh, well, if that's the championships and you're allowed in and you win it, you're the champion, surely.
Exactly.
Wow, twice Italian and one-time Slovenian champion.
Exactly. Now I'm going to go and try them all. Slovakia, Hungary, all of them.
Yeah, the British final will be coming round in August. Yeah. You'll be living in Birmingham by then. You're practically a native, so...
I wouldn't mind.
I saw that a video that I think you shared on social media around that time where you were you got all your gear on, your Speedway race gear, and you were out doing the gardening.
Yeah, it was a bit of fun, mate. I did 4 videos, and actually one of them touched about 55,000 people watching it. It was crazy. But it's funny because it all started with asking my sister to make some pictures for my new gear, which I got from Maliniak in Poland, and I said, let's. Of course, we couldn't go anywhere, and I stayed in the house. So I said, let's take the bike into the garden and let's do a couple of pictures. And then I said, just do a couple of videos, and we start messing around. And I said, let's do a video to put it out. I think people is bored enough, and they need some happiness in their life, and just to laugh a little bit. And because of course there was a lot of negativity, same as now, of course, but. They need to laugh a little bit. So that was the only reason. I just want to make people laugh a little bit, and they loved it. They asked for part 2 and 3 and 4, and I stopped at part number 4, to be honest. But I should have actually kept going with some other ideas. But I just I kind of stopped it there because then the season started, and I was working a little bit in the family restaurant, and and I kind of stopped. But it was funny. Yeah, it was fun.
There's a comedian, is it a Swedish comedian who The comedian plays a role of Tony Rickardson.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
And he just turns up to the shop, or he's on public transport and he's in his race gear. It's just a bit like that.
I should do it as well. Problem is that many people know me here, so they would think I'm going mad and crazy, you know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something in that as you're getting towards the start of the season, that you really can't wait for the season to start, so you're just living your whole life in your racewear.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I was actually putting the suit on many times because it was brand new and I wanted to use it. But of course, I didn't have many laps at the track, so I just said, okay, I'm gonna use it at home.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic, and I think people do like to see that kind of stuff. You know, it's just a bit of nice fun.
We live in a very crazy world now, and there's a lot of negativity, and I don't really like it. So I always try my best. Even if on my small group of people around me, I always try to be positive and push for positivity, because there's enough negativity in this world at the moment. We don't need to jump into that, and many difficult situations around the world. And if like one stupid video or one post or one picture can cheer somebody up a little bit, then why not? It's all about pushing love and positivity.
Absolutely, and it costs nothing as well. It's just a nice bit of fun. And how was life? Because you've lived in Birmingham before. You've been a Birmingham Brummies rider, and you're heading back there. I personally love Birmingham as a city. I don't live there, but I've worked there, and I found it was a great place to be. How was your experience?
To be honest, I've never. So because I wasn't living there, I was living in Norwich, and it was very, very far away. It was like 3.5, 4 hours trip every meeting.
Yeah, Norwich is close to nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually been there. I've never been into the town, to be honest. It's funny, because they kept telling me, many people tell me, you've been around the world, you've been here and there, Yes, but I've never seen anything, because all I do is go at the track with the van, race, and pick up the van and go back home. That's all I do, even though I can say I've been here and there, but I really didn't. And but this year I'm a guy that loves spending time around cities and visiting, because I just love the whole every places in the world. And so yeah, I just hope I can find some time to go there and visit a little bit more, which I would love to. I'm probably gonna move from Norwich to somewhere closer to Birmingham, which could probably be around the Swindon area, but I'm not sure yet. So yeah, we will see what happens. But otherwise, I've been living with a great family. I was very close. In Norwich, sometimes I was going to the gym with Doily, and it was fun to spend some time with him. The family I was living with, they are great people and very helpful. I was living with the Trevor Hedge family, engine tuner and former rider. The family is just fantastic. But yeah, looking forward doing a bit less hours traveling and spending a bit less money, because it's been a very important investment into my career that year, I can say.
And I hope you get time to have a look around Birmingham. There's some great things to check out, and some great Italian restaurants as well, so you should feel at home.
Okay, I was going to be good. I'm going to give it a go then. Always up for good food, As a former, let's call it cook, not chef, because chef is much higher than me, but I like to taste good food.
Of course, yeah, you're a man in the kitchen. What's your signature dish then?
I do really like cooking a lot of meat in the grill. That's what I really like. I really love firing it up and just put some steaks in the grill. I was pretty good at it, to be honest. Many people were very happy to see me cook a nice steak, and they always gave me a lot of positive feedback. So yeah, I guess it could be it.
You're good with the barbecue.
Yeah, I'm fairly good, to be honest. I don't wanna say it too loud, because then I'm gonna receive many messages saying, yeah, when are you coming here to cook something for me? From all my friends.
Be like one of those like NFL trailer parties where people can gather at the back of your van and you can sell them steaks and stuff before the meeting.
Oh yeah, 100%. Also, I've been to a couple of places. Like I've been to when I was there in 2019 in Norwich. Of course, I was living close to Ollie Allen and Tommy Allen's family. So we met to see a GP together, and I brought the aperitif. So I took a bit of cheese, breadsticks, and I did a nice avocado sauce and all that. And I still receive messages now from Ollie and Tommy, when are we gonna do it again? I'm missing the cheese and all that. So yeah, when it's about food and having and enjoying time, I'm always up for it.
Good stuff. That's great to hear. When we're talking about your time on the track so far, then we've talked about you, but what about the other riders? Who have you found to be like the toughest competitor that you've come up against so far?
Whoa, that's a nice question, because it always depends on the meeting. I mean, if you ask me who was the guy that, let's say, motivated me the most to improve, surely is the one that I've been racing against the most time, which would be Covati, of course, because it's always me and him challenging for the top of the championship in the Italian championship rounds, and I think I would put him, because it's always a big challenge to beat him. Mm-hmm. If not the toughest rider I've been against, I've been against the sometimes I've been against the Greg and Ty in the World Cup, or Zagar in the Slovenian Championship, and they're always tough guys to beat. Of course, it's one of the toughest meetings I remember is the under-21s qualifying round. So back then in Italy, I was racing very small amount of meetings back then, but when the under-21 world qualifying rounds were coming to Terenzano and Lonigo, I was always pushing so hard to qualify. But if I tell you the names, you would be you could actually imagine I'm 27. So back in the under-21s, I was racing against Schmarslik, Dudek, Pavličky, Jepsen Jensen, Mikkel Beck Jensen, Mikkel Mikkelsen. Back then, Sam Masters, they were very young, but they were racing a lot as well. So it was very tough to race against them. So that's the hardest meetings I remember racing in, because I was a young bloke growing up in the sport. And I was just going for it, and I crashed a lot. But as well, I was doing pretty good. But yeah, it just didn't happen, and that's something that let's say pisses me off when I think about if I can say it,
Yeah, and I think when we hear of qualifying rounds, say if you're a British rider and they say that you've got to go to Terenzano or Lonigo or a place like this, it's obviously a very long trip to get in your van and drive all the way there, do the meeting, and then probably come back to ride in the league. It's a big old journey, but for you, that surely is a great home advantage if the qualifying rounds are held on an Italian track.
Yes, it does. It's a big advantage, but on the other side, you also have the home pressure, because you are the only rider that can prove or can show the nation on the map, and the amount of pressure you have on yourself, or they put on you, it's much higher than any other places. Because if you think an English rider that goes to Germany for a qualifying round, yeah, okay, but you can well imagine when it's the same as when they do the Speedy World Cup or the Speedy of Nations in Manchester or a King's Lynn, the amount of pressure you have on yourself, because you need to make a result. But they don't, how can I say it? They expect and they want a result, not thinking about the background that you're going against riders that they are racing three times the amount of meetings you do, and the level of the competition you race them meetings is so much lower respected the level where they back then, or they are now, they are racing. So if I go to a World Championship meeting now, I'm racing against people that are used to race in Poland against very tough competition, while I'm used to race in the Italian Championship, or, well, of course now I am racing also in England against a bit of a lower competition. So, of course, your level is going to be different, isn't it? But that's when you need to pull something out of the hat and make it. And that's why the extra hard work in the background needs to not pay off, but needs to be very hard, so then you can get the result.
And I know that you, obviously, we've mentioned your dad, but obviously the riders that your dad was racing with through his era, there's a lot of legends, a few of which have been on this podcast. People like Jeremy Doncaster or Kelvin Tatum, and people of that kind of era. Have you been offered any great advice by any of those riders who were sort of friends of the family, if you like, that's helped you in any way?
Yeah, I've been growing up with many older riders around the house, of course, because my father was racing with them, plus I was going around the world and meeting a lot of riders, and of course they gave me many advices, but it's the most important thing is remembering how they were acting back then and comparing it to how I am now, because of course back then you have a memory of how they were back then. Of course the world was different in 1998 or in 2006, compared to now. But on the other side, they were a lot younger, and I still remember them or how they were acting, and I'm just trying to figure out their way of living their career and learn from them. Of course I was living and I lived as well in Australia with Steve Johnston, and I've seen how he was in his career. I've seen Crampy, I've seen Hancock, Lee Adams, all of them, so I look back at how they were and try to learn on how they were. That's why when I say I study a lot of the sport, it's not only about the riding on the track where you watch the videos. It's about everything, the whole package.
I think it's really interesting that you are studying things in such detail, and obviously you've learned from being around previous champions that you can list off, like Greg Hancock and Jason Crump, and you've grown up in great company. Per Jonsson is, I know, a big friend of the family as well. Do you think that this is the kind of attention to detail that not every rider puts into the sport?
What I do believe is it's depending on how you are, and how can you say? I'm just trying to figure out a way to say it in a good way. I mean, if you don't care about your future or you don't set yourself a goal, you just go to the track, have fun, go back home and eat a cheeseburger and you'll be all right, have a beer and off we go to the next one. Yeah, I want to do good this year and just whatever happens. If you want to be world champion and you set yourself a big goal and you want to go forward, that's I think that's what you need to do in any sport. In any sport, most of the world champions were students of their bike or their equipment or their whatever of their own game, or they were studying the opposition in any sport. And this is why I do believe that to equal the lack of technique that I have on the bike and talent that I have on the bike, I need to cover it up with a lot of study, a lot of hard work, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I know that I'm not the best rider in the track technique wise, but you can learn it, and you can learn it by watching and putting the work in once there is practice, once there is a meeting in the background. And I feel like I'm doing it right, even though the results are not here yet. But I'm pretty sure that if I keep into this path, then something will happen.
Well, it's really brave to admit your weaknesses, number one, isn't it? But by putting all that study in and attention to detail and learning from your own past experiences, which you can only have your own experiences by getting on the bike and riding, but secondly putting that together with what you know from your friends who have achieved the very heights of the sport. Hopefully you can convert that into some international success.
Yeah, I feel like that way. I mean, I feel that way, and I feel like I can go a lot forward in the sport, and I can do good. Of course, anything can happen, but I'm just trying to control what I can control, and that's my own hard work, my own time that I put into the sport, which is everything. And then just keep going, through the storms of I don't know if I can say shit, but through the storms of shit, and through everything that comes, you need to face it and go through the walls that life puts you in front, and just keep going, and that's what I also. If anybody, what I didn't learn many things in life yet, but that's surely one, and that's something that I would advise to people.
And that is Paco Castagna, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway. Coming up, we're going to check out Paco's dream Speedway meeting in our Speedway Paradise feature. Who would make his all-time 1 to 7? What rule would he change? And who would be the opposition for this team? A special twist, a team of top Speedway drinkers. Find out who makes the list next on Humans of Speedway. It's Humans of Speedway, and I'm Ian Brannan. With me in this episode is two-time Italian champion Paco Castagna, who's ridden in the UK for Sheffield Tigers, Ipswich Witches, Birmingham Brummies, and he's back with Birmingham for the 2021 season. And right now, it's his turn to describe his dream Speedway meeting in our Speedway Paradise fixture. Now, if this is the first time you've listened to Humans of Speedway, well, first of all, welcome along and hope you've enjoyed it so far. We do this feature in every episode, so if you look down the list of all the previous guests, they've all answered these questions, and it's the same 6 questions every time. So the questions are, if you're going to have a dream meeting, which track would you have purely for the racing? Which stadium would you put that track in? Who would be in your all-time 1 to 7? Who would be the referee? If you could change one rule of Speedway to improve it for the better, what would that be? Of course, don't forget that Paco Castagna's dad is in charge of track racing at the FIM, so it could be a controversial one, who knows? And who would be the opposition? Let's crack on then, Paco. Starting off with your track. If you're going to race on any track, which would it be?
So I've been to many tracks, but not too many. If it makes sense, I still have to go to the Polish tracks and the Swedish tracks and the Danish tracks, which are recommended as the best. But I've been to one track which I think it could produce some great racing if the track is well prepared, and that's Gorican in Croatia. That's one track where if it's well prepared, it's gonna create mega meetings, and it's always very enjoyable to ride, and I always love to go back there. So yeah, surely the track is Gorican, but if I could move the track into another stadium and get it fully packed of people, surely where I've been, and it might be off track, kind of like not many people might say it, but it would be Norden in Germany. Because Norden in Germany is near Güstrow and Tetero. It's a very old track, but if you look at let's say 1983 World Final where Egon Müller won, you go have a look later on YouTube and you have a look at that stadium, mate. I've been there racing, and he only had 3,000 or 4,000 people there, and he looked absolutely empty. You will have a look at that meeting on YouTube, and then you send me a message and you tell me. Mate, it's just massive.
It's a good shout. I don't think anybody's ever mentioned that before, but I think I have seen the Egon World Final, because that's the one where it looked like he'd kind of gone across the inside curb a little bit, where he just kept enough of his tyre.
Yeah, looked like, yeah. Not many replays back then, so yeah.
Yeah, he's a proper legend is Egon.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that would be the nicest thing, Gorican track inside Norden Stadium.
So Bratwurst all round then. Norden Stadium around the Gorican track. for Paco Castagna's dream meeting. Now, who's going to be in your all-time 1 to 7, Paco? I imagine that you've got quite a few well-known friends from the world of Speedway, as you've alluded to through the course of this chat so far. So who's going to be in your all-time 1 to 7 then?
So I've put so this is not I didn't put the best riders in the world in the team to win the meeting, but I've put who I feel like I've learned a lot from and I would love to see racing together.
Okay.
So I've put Per Jonsson on number 1. He's like my uncle, he's my mentor and very good family friend, so I call him Uncle Per. He's going to be a number 1. Nice. I do believe that surely one of the greatest rider ever. And I would pair him up a number 2 with my dad, because seeing them riding at Reading was mega, and I would love to see them riding again. So that's them 2, at number 1 and 2. Then I've put Jason Crump at number 3 and Greg Hancock at number 4. And that's because when I was a young kid, you know, I usually had them around the house for the GPs or the big meetings, and you know, you kind of grow up with looking up to them, and like Crumpy, I remember one thing about, you know, again, we were very good friends, and he always called me Paco Boy, you know, and he used to give me his goggles and that kind of stuff. But then after one big meeting in Lonigo, it was a big open meeting. He won that year, and after the final, you know, where he won a six riders final, he stopped at the pits, said, you know, thanked the mechanics, but he called me to jump in the back of his bike to do like a victory lap together. Fucking
wow!
I will never forget that, you know. And so yeah, I always remember that kind of moments, and playing in the garden with Greg and his family. So yeah, plus, you know, this is only personal. I'm not gonna touch their career because, you know, the numbers and the results will speak for themselves.
I mean, it must have been amazing having these sort of people around to learn from, just in, you know, growing up in that environment.
Yeah, mate. Well, you can well imagine, and you know, I've grown up a lot looking up to them, and you know, I feel blessed to have had that kind of opportunities, and you know, I realize that everything happens for a reason, and I've grown up with them, and I want to set that kind of standard of life and career, and you know, I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes, and yeah, so walking my way.
It's a strong team so far, though, Paco, isn't it? Per Jonsson, Armando, Greg Hancock, Jason Crump so far. So who's at number 5?
Number 5, I've put, of course, Hans Nielsen. I've only met him once, but being a tour rider, that's one guy you look up to. And I've learned a lot from him and his riding, and I still got loads to learn from. And that's one guy I would put a number 5, because I would love to see Hit 13, Per Jonsson and Hans Nielsen together. And then a number 6 and 7, I've put Donkey Doncaster and Scott Nichols. So yeah, I've put the 2 British because, well, Donkey, very good friend, fantastic guy, always loved him. He's kind of you know, somebody you wouldn't say he was so successful in his career, if it makes sense. You know, always such a polite guy, and amazing gator. Lots to learn from, and you know, always loved him, always. And Scotty, because I don't know, I always liked Scotty. His riding style, you know, very aggressive. The way he was riding the bike, riding the bike, and you know, I've always tried to learn a lot from him, because he was very unique on the bike, and I always loved it. So from this team, I've you know, it was hard to select them compared to another couple, but you know, that was my 1-7.
No, they're really great, and Scott Nichols, in fact, was the first guest on this series about nearly a year ago. Yeah, nice. Yeah. So I spoke to him a while ago, and Donkey spoke to him at Christmas, I think it was.
Nice.
But yeah, guy. I mean, he was as you imagine, he was some great stories, and he was saying he couldn't understand how he's tried to explain how he does his gating, and not everybody can grasp it. But but basically it says don't over rev it. Was his
back then it was a lot easier. Because with the uprights it was a complete different riding. That's one. I love the Speedy from back then. I absolutely love the Speedy from the uprights, and I look a lot of it, even though I shouldn't. But I just try to study a lot of it, and I just love it. So the bikes were a lot different, and also the starts. But if you look now, they go on the track and they put the bike at 14,000 revs and drop the clutch.
Have you ridden an Uprise, one of the classic old bikes?
No, actually not yet. I want to, but I never did. So I'm looking, if there's going to be an opportunity to try it behind closed doors, I wouldn't mind giving it a go.
Okay, if anybody's listening who's got an Upright that Paco can borrow for an hour, then
hey, maybe on a nice smooth track, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if we can organise that. Something like Bellevue, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere nice, big and smooth. So, next question then, Paco. Who's going to be the referee?
Wow. Nice question, because the referees is always very delicate question. But one guy I did a couple of meetings with, I can't remember if I did one meeting or two meetings, and I liked a lot his refereeing was Craig Ackroyd. Obviously GP referee, and a lot of success in his refereeing career so far. But I would say Craig Ackroyd. I remember I had a couple of good meetings with him. I think it was World Championship meetings or stuff like that. But
I think Chris de Gardel's finished with the GPs now, and I think so. Craig Ackroyd's widely being thought of as the best referee in the world at the moment, I think, which is great for British Speedway.
There's many great referees. Of course, it's always not a nice job, obviously, but because you get a lot of stick. But fair play to them for jumping to do the job.
Absolutely. Well, we do need them. The next question is sort of related, really, in terms of if you're going to change a rule of Speedway to improve it, what would that rule be? Now, you're the first person and probably the only person I'm going to speak to whose dad is head of track racing at the FIM. So which rule do you think that you would like to look at if you were in charge?
I mean, I just think that people need to, riders need to behave a bit more. Starts should be a little bit longer, and so the riders should stand still a bit more, and the referees should be a bit more, soft, if it makes sense, because I stopped watching Polish Speedway just because of the start marshal and the referee, to be honest. I just don't like waiting 20 minutes for the start marshal to wait for the millimeter that the front wheel moved of the rider and kept moving back. I don't like that. I like it how it was back 5, 6, 7 years ago. I like the idea of the warning. It can be very good, instead of throwing a rider out straight away, or a rider trying to gate in front every time just by letting the clutch drop straight away. I wouldn't have one rule, I'm just thinking, but I would just be a bit softer. Maybe it would be going back a little bit with the engines. Then try to maybe restrict them a little bit more. Of course you can't, because it's racing, but if on the ideal rule would be to go back to the 2005 engines, where there was the GM and the Javas. They were a lot softer and a bit easier to ride than they are now. And I think Speedway was a bit better, to be honest, in my opinion.
You're not the first person to say that, actually. I think it might have been Jeremy Doncaster that said something similar, thinking about it.
Yeah, they're too delicate now, mate. The engines are very hard to ride, and you're always on the limit. And of course, it's Speedway. That's how it is. And there is only one way, and it's forward, they say. But I think Speedway was. It's fantastic now, but I think there would be more riders, less injuries, and it would be a bit easier to ride and a bit more spectacular, maybe.
Okay, and that brings us to our final question then. And who's going to be the opposition for your dream team that you've already named your dream 1 to 7, but you've come up with another team as well that you want to be the opposition. And there's a bit of a twist to this. So over to you and let's see what you've got.
So what I did is a second team to finish the meeting. But it's more of a fun team. I'm just going to put them 1 to 7 and then I'll let you know why.
Yeah.
So I've put Joe Screener number 1, Mark Loram number 2, Sam Ermolenko number 3, Billy Hamilton number 4, Brian Carger number 5, Jono at number 6, and Carl Stoneware number 7.
Wow.
So that's why I thought of this team, because if my home team wins the meeting pretty easy, well, not pretty easy, but if they win the meeting, then surely the away team can win it at the bar.
Are they the top 7 Speedway drinkers? Is that what you're saying?
That's who I think are the best Speedway drinkers. I'm pretty sure about a couple of them, but I heard some stories, so I'm just them 1 to 7 at the bar would be a complete disaster. I would love to see that. Surely the team spirit will be very high.
You could probably smell it from outside.
Yeah, that's why I thought of them. I wanted to put a couple of them in my home team, but then I thought, screw it, I'm just going to do another one.
Yeah, this guy's too good at the bar to go in the actual team.
Exactly. How can you leave John out of a team?
I was thinking, are these all riders who are really good at doing wheelies? And probably they are.
Yeah, surely much better than the home team, 100%. Yeah. If you put Joe Screen, Sam Ermolenko doing a couple of laps wheeling, or Billy Hamilton, mate, 100%. I should go in the team as well if it's all about wheeling then.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, get yourself in. Well, fantastic. Thanks for sharing your dream meeting with us, Paco. It certainly sounds like a fantastic meeting. I think there would be no shortage of people queuing up for tickets.
I would surely pay the ticket to go to watch that meeting and then go to the bar, have a couple of beers.
It sounds like everybody's a winner.
Yeah, that's why you want to go to the speedy meetings. Everybody want to win, innit? That's surely everybody's winning.
That's what we want, and hopefully it's going to be a winning year for you as well in 2021. Fingers crossed for you. Stay safe, and we'll look forward to speaking to you in future times. Maybe we can catch up when you're a GP superstar or world champion. We can have the first exclusive.
100%, mate. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and in the podcast. I hope you're gonna have great success with it, and wish you all the best in your working career and to reach as well your dreams. And surely I'm looking forward to have a chat with you in the next couple of years when I will have a lot more trophies in my room.
I hope so.
Looking forward to it, mate. Thanks a lot.
Paco Castagna, my guest on this episode of Humans of Speedway. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. A couple of guests, actually, that we've had previously on Humans of Speedway are people that have been mentioned in this podcast, including Jeremy Doncaster, Scott Nichols, who was the very, very first guest that we ever had, going back a little while, and Phil Morris, who works very closely with Paco's dad, Armando Castagna, now at the FIM, and Phil is the race director of the Speedway Grand Prix series. So some great stories. I think Phil actually talks about his time in the team with Armando Castagna as well. So check those out, along many other episodes as well for you to listen to at your leisure. Don't forget to follow us on whichever podcast platform you listen on, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts or wherever else you download them from, because there's heaps of different ways to listen. Follow us on there so that when there is a new episode, you get it straight into your app straight away. And follow us on social media too, because we like to share preview clips of upcoming episodes and things like that. So you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, search for Humans of Speedway. We've also got a special Facebook group where I give a little bit more info in there as well for people who are like dead keen. And of course, we're on Twitter at Speedway Humans. And Humans of Speedway is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. It's the UK's first dedicated sports podcasting network. Loads of other great titles and that you can listen to from lots of other sports. Plus, if you head to our website, which is sport-social.co.uk, and search for Humans of Speedway, you can listen online to all the previous episodes there as well. And in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and we'll speak to you soon on the next episode of Humans of Speedway.
Find more great shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.